Howdys and Salutations, let's give that another go. How are y'all doing? Hopefully pretty good. It's been a heck of a week, hasn't it? Let's see, last time we left off was the 1-year streamiversary, and then we went silent for too many days, like 12. Sorry about that, family vacations being what they are. I've been out on the west coast the whole time. That said, I'm jealous of that weather. So much better. So much better than the garbage weather we have here right now. But yeah, no, Seattle was fun. Cool city. But that said, as fun as that's been, and as nice as that break was to avoid burnout between all of the ArtFight prep and then the ArtFight, I'm ready to get back into it. And nothing inspires that more than this awesome attack that we got from Care Bear Tomo. Just so cool. Look at this. Also, apparently this other character, who is by Asamichi Art. Sorry, I'm probably not getting that right. Is named Pepper, so it's just the perfect combo of witches. It's adorable. Also, I suspect y'all can't hear a word I'm saying. Give me just a half a second to fix that audio. Let's maybe turn the music down a little bit. I'll turn it back up for y'all just a hair. Make sure that we're both still audible. Cool. Sorry, audio's out of whack here. While we've been away, the neighbor's been doing roofing things, which means they're still doing roofing things, which means they're still hammering away. But that's a-okay. I appreciate that they're doing that. You know, it's not like it's a favor to me, but it's still like, gotta get done. I can't get mad at them for that. And what I can do is just get stinking excited about this adorable art piece. Look at this! I appreciate the attention to detail on Salt. Like, all of the details are right. They've got the glasses, they've got the little, knee gems. It's adorable. This whole scene's adorable and very in character with Salt. And also gives me Major Kiki's Delivery Service vibes. The background is... it's also good. I love this piece. So, we're definitely going to have to get a revenge that bumped Care Bear Tomo up the attack queue a few spaces. Because, I definitely got to do art in response to this. Like, how could I not? So, we're going to go for... let me actually swap overlays real quick. Let's jump to our main one. Can y'all still hear me? Good. Excellent. Wonderful. Let's keep on peeking the mic by accident. I'm sure that'll be great. Anyway, having done that, or having said that, we're going to go after one of Care Bear Tomo's characters. One that doesn't have a whole lot of fan art. When I chose it, it didn't have any. Since then, they've gotten one attack, so I was like, rats, I'm not the first. But we're still going to have a go at it. This is Izetta, and for the record, in chat, we do have a target command now, so you can check out immediately who we're attacking in ArtFight. That way, that'll all be live and up to date. I've been refreshing the commands a little bit. We had this attack, or current target, last year, actually, and I hadn't updated it since then, so good to get that going again. Huh. Stream Elements doesn't show up in my overlay. Interesting. And I will say, I have also been messing with some behind-the-scenes stuff. I've messed with different overlays and tweaks and stuff, but I can't really get one better than this. My only complaint about the current layout is top left up here. This tends to block the preview on some things. And, that we lose some buttons, but we also lose the stinking Windows menu bar with this lower one, so I'm not too mad about that. But this character... Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place today. You can tell I'm a little rusty on the streaming, can't you? It's been too long. You pause much at all, and you just, totally lose the rhythm. But this character, I don't know, this is just a fun character. They've got a neat design. Dragon... a dragon D&D character, also looks like a bit of a shepherd. Should be a fun combo. So, I looked at this for a while, trying to think of the best poses and different things, and I'm not going to do anything crazy fancy with it. But I did run across this old, model art of Roderica from Elden Ring, which I know we've been on Elden Ring too much, but the point is, I thought it was a good pose, especially if you adjusted it slightly so this hand was holding the crook. Because then one could be in the active, not really shepherding, but charging forward, which would be more of a D&D move. D&D shepherd move. Anyway, I don't know why. These characters just kind of gave me, not this particular art of Roderica, but general Roderica gave me the same vibe based on what we're seeing here. I don't know if that's close or not. But we're going to have a go at it. So we're going to have an attack on Izetta here. Now, I am going to warn y'all, I ain't warmed up, like, at all. I've been doing some pencil and paper sketching a little bit, but I am way out of practice from where we usually are. So let's figure out what brushes we're on, what we've been using. Okay, we're still on the Real G Pen. We've got a decent pixel size. I don't know why I'm on this particular gray. Oh, I probably do, actually. So we go to this, we can do our roughs for poses and such, which I shall do. Now let's see. We can. I mean, this is such a non-dynamic pose, though. I'd love to like trying to figure out ways to make poses that are more dynamic, and I'm still bad at it. I'm just. It's looking at a pose ref is one thing. Like I can look at a decent pose and capture it fairly well. Like I'm getting the hang of not line of action because whatever, but of general posing and being able to accentuate angles and stuff. But like when it's up to me to just come up with a pose, I'm always just like, well, I feel like part of the problem might be because I start with like torso and then hips, and like those, I mean, they're essential for the pose and for weight and everything, but maybe it'd be better if I started with feet or whatever's currently anchoring the weight. Because right now it feels like I have to derive the feet from this, and so I end up with just very static feet to support it. And then you can do whatever with the hands, like, hurrah! Like, whatever. But maybe if I started with, like, where gravity actually is, we'd get better poses. So just looking at this one from Roderica, because it is a fairly static pose, I won't deny that. Zoop. Let's see if we can't do something that's based on that pose, but has a little more going on. And we can even do this. This doesn't need to be in a vector layer. That'll make erasing and tweaking harder. Let's do this in a raster layer so we can just like mess with it easily. So, let's see. If we want it to be dynamic, rather than having a foot flat on the ground, why don't we have one that's like slightly raised? Perhaps in something. I don't want to risk a walking motion, A, because of the complexity, and B, because... Well, no, just A, just because of the complexity. There is no B. They're just complicated poses. But we could still have a pose where they're not static. Oh, okay, we can go with a slightly bigger eraser there at the moment. So what about leaning on the, yeah, leaning on the... Not crutch. What's it called? Crook. Wow, brain. We could try something with that, so that'll give us another point of gravity to be working with. So we can have a, you know, again, this isn't going to be actual final silhouette. There we go. That feels like it's maybe too much. And then the line of action for the character could be something more like this, leaning up against it. I'm not going to stick to that too much because I found that sticking aggressively to my line of action actually makes my work more static, which means I'm doing it wrong. I'm aware of that, but I'll have to work on that. Let's see. So we could have one foot still facing the viewer. Then this other one could be like heel off the ground a little bit. And these are obviously not proportional feet. We're just figuring out poses right now. Still needs to have like proper ground grip. Okay. I gotta stop. I always end up coming back to this wall lean pose, and that's not really what we need. Let's see. It wouldn't be behind. Be more like holding it out to the side. I mean, this would end up being more of a... Tilt in. Okay, we can go more head-on angle than I've been envisioning. That's the other problem with the line of action is, for whatever reason, and this isn't an issue with lines of action so much as with my experience using them, for whatever reason, they end up locking me into a perspective that's almost always wrong. Like, I see this curve and my brain's like, oh, 3/4 view. And, like, no. It's just, like, trying to be the actual tilt of the body, but like not in that view. More like that, maybe? Let's see. Let's say, I know we're not doing the feet right now, but we're still doing it based on the gravity. If you're doing it like that, then really your arm's going to be almost in line behind it. And then up to it and hand. Okay. And this is the part where I'm going to want to actually come back through, and this is something that I'm going to try this time, because I feel like it's been a hiccup lately, is we're getting the pose, but I'm getting lazy with proportions when I do the pose. Or I do the proportions and then I get super static. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to come back through and actually try to get decent proportions on it, because I'm tired of stuff that feels way wonky, and I have to fix later. Let's see. For example, this should not be as 3/4 view as it is. The top maybe can, but this one needs to be more twisted. Twisted to face the viewer, I mean. Oh cool, my bot works. Yeah, that was another thing I've been working on lately. Let's see. Well, one thing I can test is, let's see. I have a sword. I could lean on that for a moment, try to get a sense of the pose. It's not going to be exactly right. It's a little too short for this. Let's see. And worryingly bendy. I don't want to snap it. Okay, so I'm sort of ending up more like that. Mayhaps. I realize me saying this isn't helpful for y'all. Let me see. That don't look natural. Perhaps I should have used an actual walking stick. That would be better than the sword. The walking stick's a pain to get out. Actually, apparently it's not. And it's rather a better, rather more fitting height. Let's see. So if you're just standing with your weight on that, still a weirdly static pose. Jeepers. What? Why can't I ever just do one normal pose and not like get too caught up in this? If we do it like that, the crook's gonna go in front of her face. If we do it like that, the line of action crossing over would be bad. You could probably work with this. Fairly front view. We can work with that. Be a little more interesting than the Roderica one. I'm gonna have to stand up and do this pose a couple times though, I'm sure. Okay, so that puts that mostly front on. That actually can twist away a little bit. Okay, maybe. And I see what that's doing with feet positioning. Okay, let's have a go at this for the pose. And once again, I'm probably gonna... Whoops, nope, not that. Gonna overthink it and try to make it too realistic and then make it wonky and bad, because over-realistic also not good, and I don't have the skills for that properly anyway. But, let's see. So looking at it like this... Okay. Two options. We could do like that. Do like that. Or perhaps I ought to commit to my darn pose. See, y'all remember with Mikola, right? How about we do this? I'm going to set a 3-minute timer right here. Okay, we'll do 5. And if I don't have a pose selected and finalized within the end of that, then we're just moving on regardless. Deadlines, sometimes they're actually worth doing. That might work. That one's bland. So, thinking 1 foot forward, 1 foot to the side, staff out front, kind of bland. More dynamic than it could be, but eh. Actually putting weight on the staff pretty much always ends up looking awkward. 3/4 view with it could work. 3/4 could be fun. Yeah. Not overly distracting, the staff won't be in the way, but you can still put some weight on it. Still static in some ways, but better. And a fairly common pose, so it's one I've got a little more experience messing with. I say 3/4 like that's a pose and not just the angle that this pose happens to put me in. There's a ton of stuff that would be 3/4 view technically. But let's think about it. By think about it, I mean actually draw the blasted thing. Okay, so foot towards the staff, 1 foot forward, both planted solidly on the ground, hips closer to the staff than both of those. So, hips somewhere more like this, still mostly front view, maybe a tiny bit on the side. And then, what's that going to do to upper body? Okay, a little bit of twist, actually not bad. So the foot that's pointing forward have the heel roughly in line with the toe of the other one. That's probably fine. See, after hip, it becomes more vertical, but it's almost like the character is slightly facing the staff. Okay. Ooh. They give me flashbacks to Mikola in a lot of ways, but I know the warning signs, so we're not going to do that. A, we don't have the time to do that. There's like 8 days of ArtFight left, and I've got so many attacks I still want to do. The break was important, but I do feel like it has put me behind. Okay, thinking about foot positioning once again. Leg positioning too. Slight twist does rough. Okay, so we've got like that, and then kind of an arc in on the inner one. Okay, so arc in, fairly straight line there, where we get the curves there. Those are much too wide of curves, but we're just getting pose first. Okay, thinking through roughly what that's going to do, and by thinking through, I mean standing up and doing the pose. Okay, arm somewhat obscured by upper torso. We can have the staff be a little closer. Hand is going to end up really more of here. So this arm is like there, coming out. The crook will be more like this. And the head will be, let's see, trying to apply some of the techniques we've been practicing before the break. If I can remember them, head will be more like this. Still want roughly facing the viewer. Okay, so now that I've got rough posing in, got a second thing we're going to do before we jump in, basically adding a step, but I think it'll be worth it. Proportions. Because dagnab, I've been getting lazy with these lately. And it's not full lazy. Like, I think about it for a while and I try to do it, but I try to take shortcuts. And I'm like, oh, I'll just do it with the silhouette, which sometimes works, but sometimes doesn't. And things like that. So we're going to actually properly try to do this. And I'm even going to go let's dig into our color set and go a couple tiers darker for this so that we're really like making this more concrete. Okay. So I'm going way back to, this is the first tutorial I took that was actually like useful at figuring out human poses. Admittedly not as good for 3/4 view, but still, once we have this sort of box in place, it's not the worst. So I actually don't like, I know it's measured in heads, but there's other stuff that's easier to start with, and then you can use the head measurements to make the head match that. So I'm actually going to start with the like hip oval. Or I guess pelvis oval? That's way too wide. It's only like a 1 to 1.5 ratio, so there's one, and then like that, really. There I go, making it too wide again, even with a guideline. Something like that. Now, I do think we want the overall drawing to be a little bit larger, so I'll go ahead and make this larger. And we're going to actually go through and do the heads measurements because I've been rusty, and so I need to actually, do this properly. Refresh, It never hurts to refresh the basics. Oops. Okay, fine. So it won't recognize that as an intersecting line, whatever. There we go. Now it's the right length. So I know with this angle it's going to change it slightly, but it's not really going to change it. Whoops, haven't done that in a while. I always forget that that's even an option. Used to, that was my go-to. You hold down shift and you resize. Ah, man, my workflow has changed so much. It's crazy. Okay, thinking basically going up from here, just to give reference for what this guide would normally be. You've got 1 up, 2 up, and then 3 up. If this were a fully static pose, this is what this would look like. Whoops, nope, not that one. Oh, I want to grab this line, and then going back down, we've got 1 down, 2, 3, 4. So I have not given myself enough space. Good to know now. 3. Give myself plenty of space up above. Let's just scoot the whole shebang upwards, shall we? Because we're going to end up emphasizing this even more, most likely. So, let's see. 1, 2, 3, and 4 would theoretically be roughly where the heels are. And so what each of these lines roughly is heel on ground. You've got your kneecap is this one. Roughly. I mean, look, these proportions, as much as they're, perfect proportions and all that, and humans generally follow them, that they don't all exactly follow them, and between foreshortening and poses and stuff, they're almost never a 1-to-1, but it's helpful to keep stuff accurate relative to other things. So this, if you've got hands straight down, is actually where fingertips land. That's not super relevant here. This one, the bottom here would be hip, basically. The top one being belly button. Belly button. Let's see, and then we've got roughly halfway between these two is shoulders. And these are really old construction methods. And then chin and head top. So, I mean, you can get roughly accurate proportions from this. You do roughly 1 head width, and then arc the bottom part of this. So it's 1 head width, 1.5 tall for the rib cage, but you arc the bottom part, so really the actual max length stuff is sort of down here on these corners, and then the center is only 1 head width. But again, whoops. Okay, fine. I didn't draw that in the right place. What it's supposed to be is starting at this shoulder line and going directly down to this belly button line. So once again, we've got our 1 head width, which I'm going to pull up here, rotate, Whoops, I keep grabbing the background. There we go. That right in the middle. And then we basically do the same thing we did. I could have even just copied the other oval, but that'd be, you know, less oval practice. And why would we want less oval practice? We desperately need oval practice, as does basically everyone. Alright, and then we cut off roughly the bottom third. Go back to the smaller vector eraser. Fine, whatever. Okay. Okay, yep, I knew I put that on the wrong layer. Oh well. I can go onto this layer and clear this out. I don't know why I'm being persnickety about this. This is just like a learning refresh thing. It's not in any way going to end up in the final work. Then we basically got one head, which will be not as wide as it is tall. And people talk about them being egg-shaped or teardrop-shaped, which just takes practice to do, and I still haven't got quite right. Let's see. And then based on the Enviato Tuts, which is a great tutorial resource if you're just trying to start with basic proportions, I found that it explains stuff clearly for someone who has no experience with anatomy or drawing people in any way. Like, it was very user-friendly, very accessible. Shoulder. I also like, this is all on the wrong layer, but whatever. There's a group called, like, Love Live Drawing? I think it is. No. Maybe? I think so. I think that is, because the point is that you love life drawing, as in drawing from life. And they've got some really good tutorials too, and it's designed for different beginners through advanced. But I've also found that if you just like keep up with their weekly videos, they tend to end up being a little bit confusing. Like going through their tutorials and what have you, great resource. Going through their other videos, still good, but confusing at times. Just because there's so many different things aimed at different levels that it's not always handy. So there we go. There's a basic proportion guide. Merging these two layers. There's no point in keeping them separate. Okay. Calling that one the proportion demo, and I'm scooting the whole layer off to the side. It's rough. It's not really what we need. It's certainly not, although it does already point out some flaws in what we've been doing. And one of those biggest ones that I've been doing a lot is making characters torso too long and thus legs too chunky. And there's not anything wrong with that if that's what you're trying to do. But like if that's the proportions of the model you're working with or the character you're drawing, sure, like by all means. But if that's not, then maybe don't do that. Okay, so here's the thing with the hips, is that this is going to end up being slightly more complicated because it's 3/4 view. So actually, it's going to be slightly narrower than our example one over here. Because this is basically an oval, but it's a lot like a cylinder in shape. So you take this cylinder, if you rotate it more towards you, you're going to see more of the edge and less of the main form until it's just like almost entirely hidden. And this is more round, and then you're basically just looking at the end of it, and like the other part is just like off in the distance somewhere. These aren't great demos because the proportions were bad. And like eventually this just looks like a rectangle from the side really at max length, but I'm gonna toss all of these. They're not great demos. The point being that the hip is essentially going to do that same thing where it's rotating where it's not quite facing us, so I want it to be narrower than this. So I'm gonna... Wow, that was the best mimic line I've ever done. Too bad that's not what we wanted. Oh well. That one was about right. Yeah, okay, we'll start with that. Okay. Oh, right, this isn't a vector layer. Well, then let's just clean up this other line best as we can and make the most of it. Because again, this is a reference layer, not a final layer. And not in like the technical sense of reference layer where other layers are referencing it. Well, I guess I'll be referencing other layers from it, but that's not really what that usually means. Okay, and then we're going to have this shape, but it's going to be tilted backwards slightly. And less tall. It's still going to be mostly the same height because we haven't got really height angle differences. But it's going to be tilted, and we're going to see a little bit of the side of it. Which technically means that I ought to make this just a hair more rounded, and then it'll just kind of blorb it into shape. It's probably tilted too much. That's okay. I'm going to try adjusting that without redrawing it. There's a chance that we're going to have to adjust it for proportion angles and stuff. And it never hurts to lean a little more into a pose anyway. Okay, now roughly that much higher? Yeah. And oh, and it's not going to be centered over this, is it? It's going to be... Well... a little bit... Okay, hold on. No, we'll start with that. I think it will be mostly centered over it. Okay. Thinking about joints and connections and stuff here. Shoulder is going to be foreshortened somewhat. We're going to have one arm that's closer, but key thing to remember with this pose, with the weight distribution, is with the one shoulder actually being leaned on, or where the weight's being leaned on a little bit, is going to be slightly higher. Not a ton higher, but slightly higher. Oops. Having the other hand on the hip will negate this somewhat. But the fact of the matter is that putting your weight on that shoulder is just going to cause everything else to sort of drape down from it. Because that's the support. So, we're really going to have this arc a little more like, whoops, and we can exaggerate it a little bit. A little more like this. Still foreshortened though, so still more emphasis on this one, a little less on that one. Because this one's going to ultimately mostly fall behind the body. Elbow landing about here, hand landing roughly the same height, but just a little bit further out. Staff's going to intersect over some of the body, but not that part. Ultimately, it should be aimed... Oh boy. Okay, okay. Yeah, the staff should be aimed a little bit out. Elbow is going to be there. Hand is going to be roughly in line. Barely even a shoulders width away, though. So that's going to mean something roughly where we've got it. Which also means that the staff is going to end up being somewhere more like this. We can adjust how we want to angle the crook in it later. Now, hip proportions. Hips are going to be connecting roughly towards the lower part of this. And again, because it's tilted, one of these is technically going to be like slightly less visible, like kind of hidden behind it. Whereas the other one's going to be just right here. And we're going to go down roughly those same two lengths, even though, like, because this is still a... Well, hold on. Is the hip going to have much tilt in it with this pose? No, it's mostly level. What little tilt there will be away from the staff. So we can... Let's see. We can basically lower this one just a little bit. But otherwise, the legs are basically both going to be bowing somewhat away, so this part's right. It's just a matter of getting the distance, and there won't be crazy foreshortening vertically, so these proportions should still roughly hold. So if that's roughly in line there, then we can actually just use our sort of mold here. Link one more there, and link one more. Well, actually, hold on. We've got an actual measure on the side that we can just straight up use. So roughly on the 9 on 3960, roughly on the 9 on 3960. This one's there. Those two are close enough that I'm not too worried about it. Then we got the heel foot, but because it's a little behind, I am going to raise it a hair. However, not anything crazy. We're going to actually try listening to these proportions we've just done. Even though they look somewhat uneven. So let's rebalance that slightly, because again, we're aiming slightly above. This one's slightly above. This will be slightly above. That'll be fine. And then 3/4 view. General curve of this leg is going to be back anyway. So I'll lean into that curve more. And then we'll have the foot somewhere over here, which is going to be not quite side view. It's going to be something more like this. A wedge going up like that, centering more here. And then with the base at the heel. The ultimate foot size is probably going to be longer. They always end up being longer than I expect. We'll come down with this piece a little bit. And then this one we really want to kind of emphasize being stuck out a little more and further away. So let's see. But it's also going to be a little more front view. Thinking about that. That'll be interesting. Interesting to do with the pants folds. That'll be fun. Let's see. Knee is like that. So that one's going to actually appear somewhat lower. Well, no, I'm a little cramped. It's not going to be that much lower. But it is going to arc roughly away. So I'm gonna have to think about this a little bit. Once again, front view is still going to imply this, right? And these are going to just land a little bit lower. That's fine. That's actually good. That's what we want. But I want to arc this out more if I can. End of the toe should be much closer to the camera than in the other one. Okay. Then we can get up here to, head shape and head size, which I have a bad habit of doing too small anyway. So we'll try not to go too small. We're using the mask method that we learned a few streams ago before the art fight while we were prepping character sheets. Which I think is actually needs to be a little bigger. There we go. And I am going to adjust it slightly to match the position of this one. Because rather than being fully vertical, we'll have it more like this. I'm sure I'm going to end up tweaking that again. That's just how that always goes. But there we go. So rather than just blindly following roughly what feels right there, we've got actual proportions, which have resulted in the legs being considerably longer and the hip being not nearly as separated from the ribs. I always way overdo this connection here when I'm eyeballing it. So we're going to try to stick to this a little more accurately now. Also, it's actually kind of allowed us to lean into the pose even more. I mean, we could theoretically lean into it even more with that, sure, we could do it with the rib cage a little bit, but we could even move the head back a little bit, and that way we've got more of a curve to this line of action. It's still not an aggressive curve or anything, but it's a little more dynamic than the previous one. If this one's line is more like this, whereas the previous layer's line is not that far off, but it's still more like this. It's a little more static. A little more... Mainly, it's interesting in the bottom half, it's very similar, but on the top, it's not. So... Okay. Proportions. So now, we can start actually sketching this out a little bit. Once again, I'm going to make that less visible. I'm going to move away that old pose and our proportions demo. I'm going to name this whole stinking section setup. Setup. I selected the layers wrong when I was putting them in here, but that's okay. And this I actually... Well, maybe now's a good time for my slightly rougher shaping things out a little bit now that we have a nice proportion guide to go off of. I just need to make sure I put this below it. So we can have... I'm going to call this silhouette. As we can start looking at details more now that we've got the general shape. We can look at Izetta's, I don't know, actual characteristics. Like the outfit, the crook, obviously we've got the dragon tail and little horns. And we can have some fun with eyes too, because dragon eyes are a whole different beast, so to speak. So, outfit. Silhouette, we'll deal with the bag in a second. And the arching of the crook, we're going to have to straighten that out. But first off, let's just think about the boots with this pose, because we're going to really want those to emphasize the angles that we've got here. So I actually want the boot to be mostly behind. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It's got like a little arc on the top. And again, I'm going to focus on detail more than I should, but this is still mainly silhouetting now. And then we're going to end up with feet that are way too big because I cannot for the life of me figure out how to size these things. All right, that will be hopefully less appallingly large. This next one, again, the angle and direction are going to be doing more, so it's still going to be... I still want it to emphasize more to the side, but this one's really going to be more of a straight-on view, kind of like we're seeing here. Which I can see kind of arcs from the top down a little more softly before expanding at the ankle. I want the flat bottom, but I can use our reference shape here for our silhouette fairly similarly, just with more angle coming into this side and this end being a little more flat instead. I guess really we could use this one for the reference, but you know. Okay. I got a boot thing going on, but now the bagginess of the pants will be fun. It's always fun. Okay, first off, belt though. Let's see. I guess... Where the heck does the belt land? I mean, it's on the hip bone, but it's slightly above, so belt's going to be like somewhere up here. Just thinking that through. So outfit. I'm going to tweak that for the record. That's not the right center line or anything. Don't let me come back to that and not tweak it. That'd be stupid. If I do that. I shouldn't do that. Okay. But I mainly want to know that so I can know how to do the pants. Because they're clearly a little baggy. Which is fun. This always ends up sort of being like the base of the crotch area. So we can kind of bring our pants leg up to that. And I want to use this to emphasize, once again, like this angle. I really want to lean into this angle that the character is leaning into. So we'll do the same thing with this one. That goes up a little too high, but the point where it meets is about right, so that's fine. Well, again, we'll have some bagginess on this side. That's too much. But we can really lean into the bagginess on the back a little more. Let's do this for now. I'm sure we'll have to tweak that. But that's the point of sketch phase, is you're going to tweak it later, so you don't have to worry about the fact that you're going to have to tweak it later, because that's the intended purpose of the sketch phase. Again, we'll get a little bit there, but we really want to keep that as much of a straight line as possible so we can have the warbliness over on the back sides of these like legs. Okay, now thinking about belt line again and thinking about actual human shapes and not just bone cages. Let's think. Like, it's not anything crazy here in terms of like wildly exaggerated poses. What are we trying to? Okay, the old sandbag thing where you've got like, if you want to emphasize the, so they say that the secret to drawing human torsos is to be able to draw a sandbag and having it sagging at any given angle, because torsos tend to do this thing where almost any angle you're looking at it from, it's going to like be more flat on one edge and bendy on the other. And if you're at an angle where that's not the case, it's usually not a very dynamic pose. That's not exactly right, because that captured more than just the torso, but like, and obviously that's not a hard and fast rule of thumb. Like, you can have ones where they're both kind of stretchy. Like, just a front, the thing is, a plain old front view kind of doesn't follow that rule. If it's a perfect, like a T-pose, the thing is, most of the time someone's putting their weight on one leg, and so that leg, the weight's going to be more in like that, and then the other one's going to be more of a flat arc, and like the bottom's going to tilt because of that. Anyway, you end up with more dynamic stuff if you can, generally speaking, you end up with more dynamic stuff. So I've been told a ton of times, if you can keep it where one side is more of a like smooth edge and one is more bumpy. That's part of like the rhythm of, well, a lot of shapes, but especially humans in particular, that keeps human shapes interesting. Because that'll give us an interesting like counter with the sleeve here, where we can have the arm, and like once again, kind of baggy clothes. We'll have a hand here. Hands are almost always bigger than you think too, just a heads up. Let's see, we can still like shape this out a little bit. And I know I said this wouldn't be the permanent belt line. I do think that this center point is probably a little too far to the left, is that we want it to line up with that line of action that we've got on the torso and everywhere else. We'll have that. I'm not going to worry about the exact belt position other than its relevance in the silhouette, which it doesn't actually change the silhouette all that much. Because this isn't like a super drapey cloak where it was going to be like going crazy off the edges without a belt, it was going to stop roughly here anyway. The belt's not at like the narrowest point because that'd be kind of a weird place to wear it. Well, hold on, that sleeve's decent. I do want to rework this torso bit though. So again, I wanted to move that over just a hair. Then it's basically, we can kind of silhouette in on that, arc out, have that lean, and that lets us sort of do like a smoother front side and an archier back side. And it lets us emphasize the leaning away from it, which is what I really want to do. Because the overall shape of this piece we want to have is something more like this, not necessarily something like this. Granted, we don't want to overdo it and have like crazy arc where you've got like body and like hips and legs doing this as though they're flying through the sky having been launched. That's not really what we want to do. We still want this to look like a stable pose. Okay. Let's see, the other thing is proportion-wise, that tends to be roughly a triangle or heart shape. Got the chest, and then we've got the sleeve where those intersect, and that'll be fairly smooth. Is this the right height though? Is that... Okay, hold on. I need to double check my reference, because one of these reference lines is belly button, so help me. And that would be a useful one to actually have right now. Belly button right there. Okay, belly button there. I think we've got the belt too high. Let's see. It's typically, although I guess the gender on this character isn't specified, but it, well, no, they said dragon girl. Typically for girls, the belly button is going to be also at the narrowest point from the front view, whereas with guys, the belly button tends to be like a little bit higher than that. So we do need to think through our proportions and make sure that we're actually lining that up, generally speaking, right? If the belly button's down here, then really this whole coat should be a little lower. Hold on. Let me clear out the bottom of this just a hair. think through belt positioning again. It looks like this belt sits like just a bit above the hips, not like crazy high up, so it's belt's like here. A little arc to it, but the bottom of that arc should be right in the front based on this piece, which makes sense from a belt buckle. I'm gonna scoot that over a little bit. Not quite centered, but centered relative to the character, like that. And we've got this, and we'll have the bag hanging off of that, because the actual cloak just kind of does a gentle curve up. Let's see. You can have the bag. Funny enough, the bag will actually smooth the pose a little bit. And I'm raising her grip on the staff a bit, so the hand will be up here. It won't be at this level. It'll be more at elbow level. Okay, so we've kind of got this at the narrowest point, and then we can arc out. Hold on, this also doesn't make sense. That seems too tall on the upper body. Did I label the wrong thing belly button in my diagram? I very probably did. Well, no. Okay. Hold on, because normal humor proportion, you've got basically like this going on, and then arms. That's like arm to elbow, and then to, okay. Except it's really more of like that, typically. Oh, jeepers. Which would put belly button here. Means I think the belt needs to be lower, because actually the hip is kind of like the curve between this, it's not this, so. Okay, I think that's got that sort of logicked out. But it does mean that I'm going to just refresh this whole section, basically. We're going to have to refresh all of that. Let's just fresh take. Okay, if this is the widest part, kind of down here, and that's also roughly where this coat tail is landing, roughly where the bag is landing. And it's arc back into that, and then kind of, around it. We've still got the center line, so we'll have belt buckle here. Coat going to arc further on this side, but kind of arc up. Like we're going to see the edge of it. And we're going to have to probably narrow the pants a little bit. That's fine. Slightly overemphasizing, but... Well, actually, that does give, I feel, a little more emphasis to the curve, like the overall, pose curve, so that's good. Without being anything crazy. Got the belt. And the cloak does, warp around the belt slightly, but it's a very small amount. And this is where we can sort of lean into our in curve from this pose, as opposed to, just the front angle on this one. I do feel like this needs to, the belt shouldn't go all the way to the width of the waist. That's not, okay, there we go. That was what was wrong. Belt here. More like that. More like this. You can sort of, once again, it tends to be kind of like triangle shape or heart shape, depending on what you want to do for this, so that'll change the silhouette just a little bit. Got sleeve, which doesn't come down all that far. Let's see how this ends up looking. I can already tell from the jacket coattail that that part's not connecting right. This is one of the benefits of the silhouette, is you can take out the line work from the equation to an extent, and just look at it and be like, hey, that looks wrong. But that part doesn't look right. This. No, it's not an exact silhouette, but I am still trying to be able to see roughly where stuff is. So, otherwise, I need reference points when I'm drawing from this later, basically. Otherwise, this turns into a blur and I lose where the hip was. Although if you have a good silhouette, that shouldn't happen, but, you know. Got the other line there. We'll have the other hand, I don't know, just somewhere over here. Which means we can kind of roughly figure out the elbow there. And that'll be an arm too. Okay, before we go further, zooming back out, looking at our reference, does this look like the right body shape and proportions? It's a little off. Once again. Let's see. Let me check this against the original pose. I'm going to test it with my walking stick again. Turn slightly towards it. Okay, so that arc should probably be happening here. So I'm going to move that down a little bit, and then we'll have chest, which will be roughly to there. Okay, that's not so bad. Shoulder positions. If I keep that one, it does look like she's really leaning on it. I could also shift. Well, no. If I shift the other way, it looks like she's also leaning on it too much. So this is better. Base at slightly 3/4 will be good. We're gonna end up with like a slightly sassy face angle. That'll be fun. Just something silly. Just kind of like an oh no you didn't, because the head's like a little further back than naturally I'd expect, which helps emphasize the curve and the pose and all that, so that'll be fun. But that was the one thing that I wanted to do, was bring that down a little bit, zoom out again just a hair. Once again, we've got kind of the sleeve going on, although it seems to arc more like that, not just a straight. Yeah, okay, that's better. We will get the tail. That is an important part of this character, after all. So. Let's see. Cillian usually doesn't have too much curve to it. We could have it curve around in front again, much like the original pose. Don't want to be too derivative of the original pose. But also, we don't have infinite time, and I feel like this tail would look awkward curved up. That said, what would help emphasize the overall like shape curve we've been going for? So something like that. We could do it like this. Not bad. We could have one that's more like just directly with the curve, arcing out like that. Really aim it up. Because that would be too much, and it kind of goes against the whole silhouette. It'd be jarring. Having it flat out like that's not bad. And I guess, I don't know. Oh, I guess you can see a little bit between the, whoops, in the pants legs. I hadn't noticed that before. Cool. And that means that the angle is going to be something more like this, maybe? If we do that. See, well, it also kinda, it tapers pretty quick by this end. Always go for, not, again, that sort of overemphasizes, but we could go for like a slightly more casual, just down. That kind of emphasizes the curve that we've been doing. We could arc it up a little bit. Character look less droopy. Yeah, we'll assume something like that for now. I'm gonna want to tweak the curve on it a little bit. Yeah, okay, there we go. Slightly smoother. Good, I'm still on the silhouette layer. Had a brief panic that I was on the pose layer because of all this. That would have been a pain. Oh boy, that would have been annoying. We can kind of like... just keeping it solid while still having the silhouette of specific sections intact is useful. Still looks a little, I don't know, stocky. Don't quite know how to speak that. That's been an issue on a couple of mine lately, where it looked a little bit stocky at first, and then it became like a lot. So that's the only reason I'm like concerned about it at all. I don't want to like overdo that. We can look at the arm again first. Probably getting too much into nitpick territory, which is a sign that we ought to take our 9 o'clock break. However, I'm going to hold off just a couple more minutes before I do that. And remember, we want this one to be a little more of an angular... It doesn't have to be a diamond or anything, but slightly more angle to it should help emphasize the pose. That feels better. That feels more like the character. Not crazy changes, just small ones. And now for the fact that this is also baggy clothing, and it's definitely going to bag up down here from this pose. Do that. And position still going to be roughly where it is. We're going to have baggy cloak material up right up to the edge on that one. And same deal for this one. And we want the arm taper to be correct. We also want the arm bagginess to be correct. Actually, what that's probably going to entail is fairly smooth along the top, barring this particular little section here, which will definitely be baggy. But then you really want these like to be emphasized where gravity is landing and pulling the fabric. We'll get the exact details of that hand later. It's just mostly on the hip, which is what matters. I'm going to chill this part a little bit because the main bulk of that needs to be lower. The other thing is that the main bulk of this upper one needs to just be a little bit less. Like, I still like the curve, like the overall curve and shape of it, but just like not as much. Less all around. So we really want, well, oh, well, I guess I'm kind of angling that the wrong way, but if you think about where the weight is pulling the fabric, that's getting pulled down. That's not getting pulled upwards. So it's not, unless it's specifically attached to something, like right near the joints or different things, it's not going to be bunching at the top. It's going to be bunching down lower. I'm going to have to tweak the actual fabric folds on that when we get to it, but as far as silhouette goes, that's not bad. Hey, Dark Pit Lover, welcome! Thanks for dropping by. We're doing ArtFight attacks. Trying to get the pose right on this one before we go too much further. How are you doing? What brings you this way? Let's see. Well, I'm going to start on trying to get the face. It's going to be an interesting proportion because it's a fairly stylized face, so we'll have to work on that. Head shape be what it may. We still got the mask basically here. Smooth off the, well, Does that doesn't feel right, obviously. Part of that is because of the outfit, which needs to have a little bit more neck going on. Now let's go back to our reference here. Gotcha. Sorry to hear that. That's... Oh, jeepers. So sorry about that. But gotcha, I won't refer to you that way. Hope despite that, I hope things are going better. Jeepers. Yeah, don't worry. Your secret's safe here. I mean, I guess unless they pop in. But if they pop in, let me know and we'll ban them. Don't need that nonsense going on. Feel free to vent on that, by the way. I definitely, like, you know, that I understand being stressful. If you don't want to vent, you're also welcome to talk about whatever else. I'm still drawing this from front view when it's not front view. Let's see. I assume dealing with that, you probably haven't had much time to do art stuff. I guess there's more opportunities. ArtFight isn't the only big drawing thing of the year. I'm looking forward to Swordtember, which comes up a little too quickly sometimes. Oh, jeepers. Some people are absurdly insecure over the stupidest nonsense. How on earth would anyone think that was a reasonable thing to do? Ugh. I'd say I'm surprised that there's still people pulling that kind of thing these days, but clearly there's still plenty of them around, or else we wouldn't have to have so many Twitch mods and all this stuff. I'm sorry you're having to deal with that. Let's see, we can kind of lean into the curvature of this hair a little bit. That'll be fun. I got like the bigger kind of dragon horn type deals going on here. Jeepers. I hope you were, I mean, I'm sure there's only so much they'll do, but I hope you were able to report them to Twitch and wherever else. That stuff is stinking slow to moderate, but sometimes it gets people off the platform. Too smug. Oh, jeepers. How would anyone think that that was a good way to propose going out? Like, holy cow. What? Why would... If you attack someone, why would you think they'd want to hang out with you afterwards? Like that... What? I don't get how people think sometimes. Why did you ban me? I don't get it. Oh, jeepers. How? Oh, boy. Wonder what kind of insane world they live in, where they think that that's just normal interactions. Ugh. Every day I continue to be blown away by the weirdness of some people out there. Weirdness in all the wrong ways. Not weirdness as in, haha, boys will be boys kind of stinging thing. Boys will be boys is like poking a frog. The stuff that gets excused by that is way too extreme. Just like silly little nonsense, sure. Harassing people, no. Why did you ban me? Cry emoji, cry emoji. Ah, yay. Some people are just the worst. Oh, hopefully you won't have to deal with that anymore. Yeah, for real. Okay, let's do actual lines. Okay, good. As long as, well, hopefully. Right now, my server doesn't even have ban appeals at all, so we're not big enough to have that organized. So if they show up, we can boot them real quick. Let's start with the boots. That's where we started last time, and it seemed to work. Yeah. Hopefully they'll get bored and, I don't know, probably go creep out a bunch of other people instead. But, ay. Because clearly they haven't figured out, like, not just the error of their ways, but that there even is an error to their ways. Or they're just playing naive, who knows. But in any case, you definitely shouldn't have to deal with that just because you like playing Smash Bros. I hope you're still able to enjoy that game at least. It's a fun one, even if I am hot garbage at it. Not in sketch mode. I need to actually care about my line work now. Crud. Let's see. Yeah. Hopefully in the meantime you'll be able to chill without having to deal with any of that. Let's see, so they kind of got laces going all the way down, and then so this whole thing kind of splits. Okay, that's interesting. It's more like modern shoes, I suppose. No, okay, frowny face. Cheapers, that's just weird. Cheapers, yeah. I don't know, they got issues. Yeah, this is why this kind of thing is why I'm even paranoid online. Is I just like Like, I try to keep so much personal information away from the web just because, you know, there's weird people out there who get access to it in the dumbest of ways. But yeah, I can imagine you've been a little busy to work on ArtFight. No worries there. Oh, really? Oh, that's fun. The heck am I doing? Have I forgotten proportion or like perspective entirely? Focus, mate. Okay. 14 days ago? Well, you know. Life happens. ArtFight's for fun. It's not for, you know, real. But even so. Yeah. Yeah, this one I got surprised out of the blue. I didn't expect to get an attack, so I'm trying to do a revenge right now. Let me see if I've still got the attack pulled up somewhere. I do not. Let's go find it. Because it was really cute. It was by Care Bear Tomo. And they did Salt, and then they did another person's character who's a witch named Pepper, which is just the cutest combo. And I loved it. It's got like Kiki's Delivery Service vibes. It's just super cute. So many thanks to Care Bear Tomo for doing this, because it's just adorable. Yeah, so I have to do a revenge for this one. And they did like so much detail, they like with the background and everything and the whole bakery, it's so much. I'm not gonna be able to keep up with that much detail, but we'll do what we can. Because I still got so many attacks I want to do, and there's like a week left, and ah, yeah, well, that'll take up a lot of time, too. We'll figure out the laces later. What fandom you working on? Or do you not want to spoil it? Gotcha. I can't wait to see. I'll have to keep an eye out for it, if you're up for that. Like, oh man. I need to go back and do more fandom art. Back when I was huge into fandoms, I didn't have anywhere near the art skills or the dedication to want to do a lot of art for it. And now I'm like, I want to do fan art, but that fandom's been dead like 7 years. Or like I had a great idea, but the story and the show or the book has changed so much since then that it's like not even relevant anymore. And you're like, well, well. Let's see. I mean, stinking. Want to do fan art for the Owl House in season 1, and the show's ended by now, and I still haven't done that. Granted, the fan project was way too ambitious for someone who had, like, barely drawn anything to be like, I'm gonna do a 2-minute fan animation. Like, no. Figure out how to do a single drawing first, maybe. Then come back to this plan. But, oh well. Maybe someday I'll get to it. There's a really great... Whoops. Oh, there we go. Okay. Really great electro swing song that I want to animate something to. I just need to figure out what. Okay, I'm gonna just have to take a break or like do the laces and leather shoes tomorrow. My brain just ain't processing how those are supposed to work. But crinkly fabric I can do. At least baggy fabric. I like baggy fabric. Okay. So there's the coat. So this will be like the little bag. Which actually reminds me a lot of the bag I have for salt. That's fun. It also needs to attach to the belt, so we'll see. May end up being higher. Oh well. Keep on in the meantime, just like we want that to be a fairly smooth edge, all things considered. I'll have that merge in there nicely. This one can like sink over the backside a little more. We can make it really wibbly. I'll keep a little more going on with that, try to keep a continuity between these. Kind of like the style they're doing. I've been trying to mimic a little bit of like having like I've got the ways that I like to do fabric folds, but I also like this kind of loose extra detail that adds a little depth. We could have like something like that leaning into it. We don't want to get too much crazy detail going on in the pants, so they'll be distracting. But also, like I don't know, the baggy pants are kind of part of this character design. They're fun. Let's see. Really don't need it to be like... There we go. More bag focused on the bottom. We'll start with that. Once again, I want this to be more like even like draping below the boots to an extent. Like, yeah, it's tucked in, but it doesn't want to be. And this one's going to have less angular twist in it, and it's going to generally just be like this kind of downward motion. There's going to be some angled twist in it, but not nearly the same degree. So I'm going to arc that one back there too. Okay. Well, let's see. With the angle, we do want... Oh, nope. On the eraser, that's why it's off. This leg to be a little further out than that one. But there's still generally going to be... I don't know, creases? Oh, it's got pockets. Nice. All pants should have those. Okay, thinking about the belt's position being somewhere more like this. This big buckle. I like the buckle. There's a nice bolt center point to the belt. Makes it easy to pick the angle. I had to give actual belt buckles to my characters instead of all the looping like D&D style silly belts. Said, we are definitely going to be able to see. Whoop. I want that to be. It wasn't a bad circle, but it's a little heavy. There we go. Oh no, I'm gonna have to be able to mimic this arc. Oh boy. I guess it didn't need that much. I'm gonna assume height-wise that like our viewpoint's at least higher than the belt. We're not like a gnome. That's what I'm gonna do for the perspective. Bam. Okay, keeping this up. I assume it's not like a crazy stiff belt or anything like that, so this should be fine. I need a smaller eraser if I want to shot it. Yeah, I figured. Okay. That in a little bit. So I need that line. Don't need that line. Erase that, put that back. Erase that one. For sketch mode, I've got so many stray lines, but I'm just trying to go fast because there's so much art and so little time. I want to go fast but quality, which isn't really how this works. Oh well. We'll keep at it. Okay. That's going to get wrinkled for sure under the bag, and it's definitely going to get wrinkled under this side. With the hand grabbing it. I'm probably going to pull it like a little more that way. And this side's got the bag sitting on it, so that just double whammy. Whoops. Okay. Okay. Is this connected in any way? Not visibly. It's just sort of dangling below the belt. Okay. Let's stick to it. Make the bag a little taller. I've still ended up making her a little tall, but not nearly as bad. I think the proportions have helped a lot, actually. Clear out these lines because they're not going to be there anymore. Okay. You can make this overall arc better. There we go. Hey, no. Usually on the inner edge of that, you get something more like that. Still not great at controlling my line weight where it matters. We're going to have to work on that. There we go. That's better. Better on that side anyway. Okay, let's see. don't know how tight we want the pants to be. Like, they're pretty tight in the original illustration. I've got, like, I don't know, a fly, but, like, not really that important of a detail. Okay. Let's try to get these. Remember, we've got the kind of sleeve as a reference point. It should really arc more down that arm than my initial illustration showing. Not really going to be like that, is it? It's going to be more like that, I should hope. We'll see. That's where some of those stray marks come from. It's me using the zoom scroll. Better than a doom scroll, I suppose. Okay, hold on. Other armor. We want this side to be mostly, like, not rough. We also know that there's, like, a little bit of texture with that. Pulling up, that's fine. That's the center. And we can arc the center down a little more because it's getting, like, fabric-y warped around. We'll kind of mimic the same fabric fold that they've got going on. Not gonna worry too much about, like, hyper precision on that. Again, buttons are a detail that I don't want to bother with right now because I'm, like, been going for a long time without pausing, and that's usually when little nitpicky things like that tend to go way off the rails. So instead of doing that, we are going to just not do that. And they've got a really good sense of weight in this bag. I'm impressed. I'm not entirely sure I can recreate it. We can try. A little bit of fun with this part, though. Oops, sorry about the chat rules. Yeah, after the incident a few weeks ago, we've had to add those. Some people couldn't behave. Actually, they came in solely to be jerks, but I figure at least this way it'll clear things up a little bit. And you should only have to deal with those once, and then you're back to normal. Yeah, we tried to make a lot of stream improvements at the before the anniversary stream just to keep things, like, up and nice. But yeah, we'll see. It's still evolving. We're still learning how to do this well, or at all. Yeah, basically. Man, their original one's got such good, like, dynamic shape to it, though. Like, not dynamic shape, but it's got a good sense of weight, and I'm trying to figure out how to replicate that. some of this. For the record, Scopic, I knew I should have never given your party the glitter-filled bag of holding, but honestly, I don't regret it. That was a very fun item in the end. Like, smooth the bottom of this a little bit. That's harsh. Yeah, I know you can. That's one of the reasons I definitely shouldn't have given you that bag. But, you know, y'all figure out something fun to do with it. Yeah, if you want to make the skeleton grenade, like, you know, knock yourselves out. It'll be quite a instead of the graveyard, it'll be a great time at the raveyard. Let me just leave it alone for now. Texture at the top, not worry too much about the rest. Yeah, that ring was more exploitable than I expected. Y'all put that to good use. Let's see. I get this dragon tail going in here. Probably had the setup at this point. Yeah. Well, this one's still useful. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that one. I'm definitely down to do it this week. I'm sorry that we ended up with so many delays on that. Because I've got some fun stuff planned for that one. Yeah. What I'd love to do, not during ArtFight, but maybe starting in August, is more stuff for the stream server too. Start doing like streams with Gartic Phone and TKO and things like that. I think it'd be fun for anyone who's interested. You know, I'd announce that in the Discord and like give fair heads up to people. But it certainly would not replace D&D nights or anything like that. It'd be on the normal stream schedule. Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying I want to do more activities like that with the stream too, like live, getting people on doing Gartic Phone and TKO and stuff. But like it'd just be during stream hours. It would not mess with our like regularly scheduled Dungeons and Dragons. And it definitely would have fair warning and everything. Not during ArtFight. It'll be a little ways out. It'd be fun. Yeah, exactly. I think it'd be a blast. TKO is always fun. Yes, I know. Cursed. We're cursed in that game. But The other one we could do is, because it doesn't have a terrible reputation, is Wheel of Enormous Proportion. I'm kidding. That game's a disaster. I like trivia games, but not rigged trivia games. Yeah, I don't know. Wheel of Enormous Proportions. It's fun, like, once every few months, but not more than that. Yeah. I mean, I'm not using a laptop or computer, like, for any of the facts. I'm just going for my phone. The problem is it's, like, the random part decided that it loved me for some reason. Yeah, I'm sure. It'd still just be like, oh, Thomas has 0 points and only 1 wedge? Oops, I doxed myself. Whatever. No one here will remember that, right? No one remembers that? Name's Sifamir. This is what I get for streaming tired. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop. Oh well. I mean, I'd say I'm confident there's no one in here who'd do weird with that, but Twitch is so slow in updating the currently viewing list that, like, I have no idea who's actually listening or not. Seriously, that list is, like, not helpful. It's got a little bend at the end. Oh, great. Thanks, Dark Pit. Appreciate it. That's it? Oh, it is a nice curve. Okay, I'm going to have to actually put effort into that then. Rats. Scraggly ones are way easier to draw because you can just kind of be like, "Rah." Well, that's bad scraggly, but you know, the point is that you don't have to work as hard when they're a little more freeform. Precision staff will be harder to do. Okay, cool. Let's see. Looking a little two-dimensional right now. Gonna have to work on that. Yeesh. Pleasant Shepherd's staff, this is not. But we'll be able to tweak that. Also a little small, unfortunately. Okay, we'll keep on working on this. Oh no. Oh no. You always find interesting techniques in that game. Can't wait to see what you end up doing with that. If you end up going with that route. No shame in that. It's been a long time since I've played a wizard character that I enjoyed playing. Yeah, it's a really strong class. Don't get me wrong, but I started in 4th edition, and for its many flaws, I did still enjoy the wizards in that edition better than in 5th. It's not that 5th edition's actually bad. It's purely a personal taste thing. I'm just not that keen on what's called the Vancian magic system, which is this whole you have to prep certain spells in advance, and then you only have access to those ones for a certain number of slots. I know it's classic D&D, but it's the most boring wizard setup, in my opinion. There's so many other ways to balance the magic that aren't that. I mean, that's how it worked in 1st through 3rd edition and 5th. 4th was the weird outlier, but it basically just classified spells by frequency that you could use them, and then you just had a flat number for each level of frequency. So you had your daily spells, you had per encounter spells, and then you just had whenever the heck you want spells, and you didn't have to track it. You just have access to whichever ones you knew. The trick was that if you leveled up high enough, if you wanted to get a new spell, well, but they were you had cantrips too. These were your basic attacks. So you'd have just a foundational attack spell you could always use that was separate. Cantrips were defined as more utility kind of spells in 4th. So it'd be all of the not really damage, but just kind of useful or funky or whatever. But what it meant was that you always had access to at least a little bit more magic than you do in 5th edition. But the way it balanced was rather than it was actually probably less flexible. Because when you leveled up, if you wanted to take a higher level spell and you were out of quote unquote spell slots, you just had to dump one of your old ones. Just entirely. But it made managing spells during combat easier. Much easier, and it meant you didn't need to know what you were going to encounter to prep spells, because I don't know, almost every campaign I've played in, there's not been intelligence about what you're going to be facing next or where you're going. We tend to freeform it a little bit, I guess, with the exception of Gary's we had more pre, but the campaigns I was in, having to know which spells to prepare would be the worst, because you didn't know what you were facing, so it would just be luck of the draw every time. I liked having a better sense of if I knew a spell, I had it ready. I didn't have to prep X of this spell and Y of that one. But I'm also not saying 4th edition is the best approach at all. There's plenty of other spell systems from other games that are balanced well and still give you the flexibility, but they're not this specific prep the certain things that 5th edition and classic D&D does. 4th editions is probably too constricting in some regards. I understand some of the complaints about it, and it's certainly not the best magic system out there. But there's, I don't know. I feel like those two systems aren't the only options, and I was really sad when 5th edition went back to the 3.5 and prior stuff. But that's just my grousing. Certainly none of them are bad systems. Oh yeah, I mean, but this was magic across the board. It wasn't just wizards in 5th or in 4th. That is true in 5th edition. The wizards get a lot of spells, which is nice. You just don't have access to most of them at any given time, which is weird. Yeah, but you can do so much more with non-damage spells anyway. Like, who needs damage spells, really? I mean, that's mostly jokey. Certainly damage spells are useful, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to go for them. But yeah, no, utility. Utility has always been my game. I've spent like 15 minutes just like messing with the arc of this crook, but it is finally at like a halfway decent place, so I'm gonna leave it alone now. Is there anything else that I want to sort out tonight before we leave it for tomorrow? I don't. Normally, I like to have the line work sorted, and I do have the energy. I could go longer, so I may keep going on the line work for this one a little bit more. I'm not sure we'll finish it tonight, but we'll have a go. Some of this out. Oh, you got a squad there. Oh, that'll be fun. Oh, that'll be really funny in the setting, too. Oh, I'm gonna enjoy that. I'm gonna go for roughly the same grip that they've got in this original pose. Like, there's no reason that that would be crazy different. The angle's a little different, but like, I don't know. Oh, my back's getting stiff. Okay. Hold on. If I'm gonna go longer, I'm gonna go ahead and take a 5-minute break once it gets to 10 o'clock. So in just a couple minutes here. And then I will come back, because I do want to keep going. I've got so much ArtFight I still need to do. So much to do. And I'm trying to work on some off of stream. But just as a heads up, if anyone needs to go, like, don't let me keep you up too late. I mean, certainly I'd love if y'all stay. It's always fun to have people, but I don't want to impose. Y'all got stuff what needs doing, and I recognize that it's a Monday evening. So. Ah, okay. I was never good at multitasking like that, so kudos to you for being able to do it. These stinking bubble fingers that I've got going on. What is this? Oh. Ah, gotcha. What kind of stuff you working on right now, if you don't mind me asking? I'm always curious. Ah, fun. That's right, you've got a really cool job. Oh, yep, all that stuff. I mean, that stuff is important, to be fair. But it's also tedious as all get out. I get it. Okay, I can already tell that this hand angle is like something awful. So, note for future. Just in case we, get a little lost or we have to pick this up tomorrow. There's some stuff to fix. Just little things. Ah, I see. Yeah, this is an ArtFight attack. So this is, let's see who the current target is. I can send you their way. They did an adorable attack of some Art of Salt that was an ArtFight attack on me. So we're doing a revenge attack, because that's just the way to do things. So this is a character by Care Bear Tomo named Izetta. Who's a dragonborn. And who doesn't have a lot of fan art, so it'd be a fun one. I figured, that's a fun one to do. Okay, no. The heck with this. I'm not spending another 10 minutes on the stinking cane. Or shepherd's crook. I'm going to straighten out the bottom a little bit. I'm going to say we're done. Hey, look. We're okay, come on, erase, buddy. We're done. Good enough. And it still looks weird and arced, but part of that's probably from the underlying silhouette. No, it is still weird and arced, but it's less bad. Okay. So we got tail, we got the shirt, we got the face, which will always be an exciting thing to try to figure out. But first off, I'm going to take a quick pause, use the restroom, drink some water. Don't forget to stretch, y'all. And then I'll be back in just a few minutes. It's just a confident pose. It's not an aggressive pose. But yeah, okay, I'll see y'all in just a few minutes. Howdys and salutations, y'all. Hope you had a good break. Let's see. Where we left off, it's amazing how quickly I can forget. But that's sort of the point. If you take a break and you're still like doing the same stuff, is it really a break? So we're gonna not do that. We're gonna come in here. We've taken our break, and now we're basically fresh of mind because I turned my brain off. Okay, let's see. That line probably ought to be something more like that. That's fine. And then the buttons. Let's actually think about how the buttons are going to go. I feel like this crease is like a little too intense, and I don't want to just mimic exactly what they've been doing, so let's think about this pose a little bit. Okay, we can make our eraser bigger again because of the scale we're working on. And actually, before we do the collar, okay, hold on. Before we do the buttons, let's figure out the collar, because that's going to determine some important details about the buttons. Such as where they are. Okay, so this comes down to like roughly there on the sleeve, so that's fine. Okay. They've got an interesting... I like the way that they do that. I mean, it makes sense with the fabric, but still, the sharp angle on it's pretty cool. I like that. You don't see that so much. Interrupted. Well, no, I guess this would probably... If we're looking at this... Oh, hey, yeah! Thanks for jumping on with the follow again, Dark Pit. Come back on this. See, that feels like it's too much. Yeah, too much angle for that. I need to just bring the whole collar situation down instead. Yeah, okay, that'll be... Well, if I line it up right, that'll be better. I mean, JoJo poses are a whole different mess. This is not a JoJo pose. I do love JoJo poses, though. Fun fact, did you know that a lot of those actually come from old, like, fashion magazine covers? Which is why they end up being so wild. Oh, man, it's so fun. Those poses are so wonderfully over the top. I mean, it shows. Well, the character designs are so distinctive and all the poses are so recognizable. Ah, that's right, that's the name. Araki. Oh, yeah, I mean, the ones in 6 are just bizarre. I've not been a fan of 6, honestly. I guess I still need to finish it, but I don't really feel any rush to. Mainly because... I don't know, all the stands, not only are they overcomplicated, but they're so body horror-y. Like, it's not fun puzzle challenges, it's just out-grotesque the other person. Twist the people into trees with teeth falling out of them. Like, yay, why? This doesn't have anything to do with anything, and it's just kind of gross. Like, I don't know, previously it was like fun puzzle challenges, but these ones, they're so unfun puzzle challenges for the most part. Part 5's a lot of fun. I'm always torn. Part 1 is interesting. I like Baron Zeppeli and like the weird King Arthur knight that's there for no reason. And some of the other stuff in like Part 1 is a real blast. Parts 2 and 3 are probably the most like the ones I enjoy the most, but they also have their problems for sure. Like Part 5 was just solid all the way through, pretty much. I didn't hate part 4. I did think the moral at the end was a little bit weird, but like for the most part, part 4 was a fun little self-contained adventure. But when they stand there at the end and they're like, yes, we're passing on stands to the next generation of responsible, good people, and I'm just looking at the list, and it's like, okay, that person attempted murder, that person attempted murder, that person kidnapped a protagonist for an episode, that person attempted murder, chef's cool, that one attempted murder. Like, they're not really heroes. Most of them are terrible people. Chef is the best. No, absolutely no flack towards Chef. Love Chef. Top Chef. Just the best. But, like, all of the others, I mean, yes, but it was, like, painful and then healing. It wasn't, like, painful as in you kidnapped them and then drove them into, like, throwing you off a cliff. Or, like, you murdered a cat and then blackmailed their family. Like, those are not heroic attributes. Like, I feel like there's a difference. I mean, heck, I like the self-insert manga guy, but he kidnapped several children. Like, that's... Guys. Rohan, or whatever his name was, like, there's... These weren't really great characters. The guy who writes manga, sorry, not Araki, like Kishibe Rohan, Kishibe, kidnaps Koichi for a while. Yes, that one. Because they made that spin-off series with him on Netflix, and like he's a fun character except on his introduction where he's not. Like, oh no. Yeah. Also, I still don't fully understand how they ended the time loop in part 5 or part 4. Like, no, whichever one we're knowing about it would cause them to explode anyway, even though they change. Like, don't get me wrong, I get the general logic of it, but my question is, like, I've never understood why they didn't still blow up on the final iteration. Was it that they, like, injured him fast enough? Like, all the rest of it makes sense as far as time loopy shenanigans go. That stuff's all, you know, it's fine. But why did they not still blow up? Right, if it's intended to happen, but then it doesn't happen, it happens anyway, except when it doesn't. Also, the plant flower cat thing was just creepy, but it ended up being relevant in the end, so I can't be that mad. It's like, okay, there was a reason that we had to sit through whatever that was. I guess that's the case. Maybe it was just the scale of the difference. Also, this isn't a part 4 thing. This is just a general. Like, I love the like famous JoJo when the characters die, they become silhouettes in the sky thing, but Iggy the dog did not earn it. Super didn't earn it. Like, I get that he was helpful at the end, but he was mostly just a problem. And like, Polnareff bonding with him made no sense. But like, I know that was supposed to be a dramatic scene where they're like, oh, look at the fallen, and I couldn't stop laughing when I saw Iggy. I was just like, oh no. Yes, Polar F. But like, oh, what was the other one? Oh, sorry, my brain is just skipping through JoJo stuff now at this rate. I really liked Part 5 as well. I agree that it was great. I do think the ending was a tiny bit anticlimactic. Like, it wasn't bad. It fit the story well. The writing was solid. It just didn't quite have the payoff. Yeah. I mean, it was cool art, but, like... But even before that, like, most of the... Like, once they leave the Colosseum, like, the intensity feels like it isn't what it should be for that part. And I don't entirely know why, because the stakes are high. Like, you've already had a companion die. You know there's an imposter among us. Like, thinking everyone in the vicinity is, like, morphing into miserable nightmare. Like, the stakes are perfectly high, so I don't know why it just felt, like, kind of, like, low-key. I do love that Polnareff's a stinking turtle. I don't... I can't believe that that's what they went with. But I'll take it. Yeah, but on the flip side, he survived not one but 2 JoJo stories, which is not the most common thing to do. I was afraid he was just going to die outright. I was perfectly happy for inexplicably weird... I mean, explicable but bizarre choice of Polnareff turtle. Yeah. I mean... Thinking... I guess anyone in chat, potential JoJo spoilers here. Just as a heads up. But, like... One character died twice. Guess in the meantime, if anyone... yeah. He didn't need the fingers. If he can survive becoming a turtle, I can believe that they've figured out some sort of magic-y nonsense to give him his hand back. Also, I gotta say, I love the, like, YouTube fan animations that are JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but really, really fast. Because amongst other things, they pointed out that in order for that whole scene with Polnareff and Dio to work, Dio must have been freezing time and then, like, walking over to Polnareff and moving him down a step and then going back to the top of the stairs. Like, every single time. Which is a weird flex. It's like, wait, when you think about what he was up to during that time stop, you're just like, wait a second. It's like, Dio, why? I get you want to flex on them and scare them and all, but, like, that's a weird way to do it. Oh, I mean, yeah. He was showing off at that point. He could easily have killed most of them. Okay, hold on. What's the angle of this? Yeah, he's less, I'm just going to go in, eye lasers blazing, and a little more strategy by that point. My brain has just, like, forgotten how sleeves work. Give me a second. I mean, yeah. And definitely not just because the writer decided he didn't want to be writing a vampire story. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Would that be how it connects? I realize this color is probably like a little too high at this point, and I need to rework that a bit. That's what I get for not following my own proportions guide that I worked so painstakingly to create. Is that the case? I do love the fact that because there's so many series, they ended season 1 with Joseph getting like stinking taken out. And like that just cracks me up because it's such an, if you don't know the rest of the story, it's such an abrupt ending. You're just like, huzzah, hero! Oh no! It definitely sets you up for the twistiness and the bizarreness of the rest of the adventure. Yeah. Yeah, they're fun ones. Jotaro's also really fun. Yeah, it did take 3 generations before they dealt with that. Also, a weird quirk from Stardust Crusaders. Remember that time when they make their stand super tiny and go into Joseph's brain, and then they never do that again ever? Or not Joseph? Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah, but like, there's other scenarios where I'm sure that could have been useful. And they just never even address the possibility. Oh, I'm not sure. There's stealth missions and stuff where it'd be handy to be able to be inside someone. But yeah, I guess maybe not that much. Other than maybe Zipperman could have unzipped Diavolo's brain. I don't know. Probably wouldn't have had time. Yeah, I guess that really wasn't that useful in any other scenario. Yeah, probably not. It was weird that they knew they could do that, but not that weird. They'd been testing with it for a while, so, you know. Yeah, I suppose that one's logically consistent. It's just kind of a funny moment. Right, I said I'd fix the bagginess when I came back and did the line work. Thanks, past me. Real helpful. Okay. Let's see what else we can do here. I mean, it does look more, plausibly age accurate, but I do feel like the art style is such an iconic part of JoJo at this point that it's kind of hard to just pull it out. Oh yeah. And like the face lines are really funky, but like they're fun. Have you seen that one where someone like de-stylized them and tried to make them back into normal-looking anime characters by just removing excess lines and shading, and it actually made them look 17? You're like, wait a second, that can't be right. Yeah, okay, I did at one point. Man, we've been hanging out long enough that like I've shown you all the stuff I've got now. we're gonna start getting repeats soon. Alright, hold on. How's it look without the silhouette? Is this still recognizable as, like, I don't know, human-shaped? Yeah. Okay, that's good. I'm obviously going to do some tweaks. Yo, Galactic! Welcome! Thanks for the raid! Good to see you! Sorry, it's been a while. I was out of town last week, and so I didn't get to stream. I was sad that I missed out on stuff. How have you been? How's the ArtFight going? Hey, Pomato! A new challenger. I'm glad we kept the stream going a little longer today. Yeah, we should be consistent for the next long while. I was just out of town last week, so my schedule got thrown off a little bit. How's ArtFight been going for you? I took a glance at your page, and it looks like you've been busy, which is always good to see. Oh, jeepers, I gotta fix these hands. Alright, we're doing an attack on... Got a target command now, so we can see we're attacking Care Bear Tomo, because they did a wonderful attack on us earlier. Let's see, I want to make this like a little more vertical, a little less out, a little more down. Dang! Oh, hey, Pomato, don't feel nervous. We're a fun bunch. At least I'd like to think so. Pretty friendly. But what kind of an attack got you 215? Like, you were busy. What? Wow. Yeah, we're pretty low-key out here. Well, that would do it. Why is my key low? I don't know. If you put it too high, you can't reach it. Okay, so I want to tweak this cuff, too. Also, Pomato, I think I've actually, like, last time I stopped by Galactic Stream, I think we met, so it's not even strangers. Sorry, Scopic. I mean, not in person, but, you know, in the realm of Twitch chats. I'll be honest, I don't remember everyone I run into in stream chats either. It's fine. Yep, we've definitely met, though. I remember your sense of humor. Oops, that was an eraser. Let's keep on going with this. I actually kind of like that arcing out a little bit. That'll do, that'll do. Nah, it's fine. Everyone's got a different sense of humor. The hard part is just finding folks who've got one that meshes or who enjoy it. I mean, heck, through most of school, my sense of humor was just aggressively terrible puns. And yet some people still enjoyed that, so you gotta find your audience, that's all. I made so many, though. I mean, I still make a lot of puns, but it was much worse. I did not know when to stop. Tomato, given that, I don't know, America's Funniest Home Videos has been a thing for decades, like, I think you're probably in the majority. Ah, yep. Yeah, that's how it always goes with reveals, is like, you've got the plans, and then, like, schedule and life happens. You're like, oh, man. Well, hopefully you'll get to do it soon, though. Although Call of Cthulhu's fun, too, so that'll be a nice pause. Yeah, Skopic is the most paranoid player I've ever had in D&D, which isn't necessarily bad. Skopic has caught plenty of traps, after all. But, also plenty of not traps, to be fair. Oh, that'll be fun. And sorry, Pomato, I don't like to share personal information about my vacuum. Can't share that on the web. You never know. But Skopic, I think Call of Cthulhu, it's another pencil and paper tabletop RPG type game. It's I haven't played it. I've heard it's a lot of fun. I mean, in other circles, it can also be that. Man, it's been a long time since I thought about Clash of Clans. Yeah, Call of Cthulhu is based on all of the old, like, Lovecraftian mythology. Skopic, you'd actually probably quite enjoy it. Man, this hand is looking scraggly. Why do my best hand, like, I'm so much better at drawing stinking scraggly hands than, like, actual ones. Why? Cheapers. Recognizable as a hand, sure, but like... buy it like that. Oh, well, and then on the flip side, we got this super blobby one. Polar opposites. Oh, I am way too swamped with work and like ArtFight catch up right now, but it sounds like a blast. You'll have to tell me how it goes, though. Oh, thanks, Pomato. Thanks for following. Oh, hey, does that put us at 50? Cool. That's a milestone. Milestone and a half. Not a bad one to hit just after the 1 year anniversary. Congratulations! Unfortunately, the prize is I don't have a prize, but fun. It's it's exciting. I don't know. I'll be honest. I wasn't really expecting it. I just did like an anniversary stream last week or the week before, back when I was still streaming. And so, like, I haven't got any new stuff. I guess what I can say is, because the anniversary landed in the middle of ArtFight and everyone's doing ArtFight, like, I've really postponed a lot of the activities and stuff for next month. But I'm going to try to do a lot more, like, group activities. I've got a lot of, like, drawing games and stuff. Between some of the old Jackbox ones, and then a cool, like, everyone can draw on the same canvas option, and a few other things. So I'm going to try to get more, like, you know, not just me drawing while talking, but like actually group art stuff going on, because I think that'd be fun. Oh, how was Oppenheimer? Or Barbieheimer, or whatever the movie is. I mean, it looked like Oscar bait. I can totally see that not being your vibe. It's cracking me up how much... Oh, yeah, fun novelty, but that's probably not the right movie for a drive-in. It is cracking me up, though, like how much that movie has inadvertently destroyed his reputation. Like, I don't know why. Like, I genuinely, it's not like he's a historical figure I've really studied. I don't know squat about him. But the internet went from ignoring him to absolutely clowning on the dude. And, like, what happened? Oh, yeah, pizza's boneless because it's a family food and they don't want it to be a choking hazard for children. So they debone them now. It's not like back in the 40s when they just leave the bones and everything. I'm sure he did, and I'm sure it was one of those things that made sense at the time, but, like, you know. Let's see, I'm going to merge these two lines so I can deal with them better. Actually, those ones and them are good. Let's just have this be one line. I'm going to go kind of lazy on the laces because they're not really a focal point, and I don't want to like waste a ton of time and energy on this particular piece. I feel like there's others, like the face. I'd much rather, like, we're going to have to tweak the hands again, of course. But then the face is something that I'm going to want to mess with more, so I don't want to get, like, bogged down in shoelaces. That said, I still want them to be halfway decent, so... You love the shoelaces? I know there's a whole pop song about aglets, so everyone's got their interests. I don't know about y'all, maybe it's just the way I walk, but like my shoes never stinking stay tied. I try double knotting them, I try flatter laces, it's just hopeless. Feels like a weird problem to have. But like, my shoes are stubborn. Hey, well that solves the problem. No shoes, no lace problems. You're living in the year 3000 while we're still living in 2023. I mean, depends on how you define drown. If it's not breathing because your lungs can't get the normal stuff, like, then yeah, just take a fish out of water and it drowns in air. In the water, though, probably not. Yeah, no worries on tripping if you ain't got laces. I'd hazard a guess probably not. But I don't know, I could be proven wrong. Level of detail focus. I've got the wrong level of detail focus. Probably. I think that is a thing dogs can do. Oh, hopefully it doesn't. I don't know, is your dog a fish? Did you name your fish dog? In which case, maybe it can drown. Let's see. Oh, is it 10:45 already? Uh-oh. I may have to wrap up before we got the line work done tonight after all, but we'll get this one done tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. The coloring and all on it shouldn't be anything crazy. I mean, that would probably still get you, if you're staying up 24/3, that would probably get you more sleep than most folks, because you're getting, I don't know, what, 96 hours of sleep per week? I mean, sure, the 72-hour sprint's going to be bad, but like the rest of the time, you're doing good. Oh, yeah, I mean, look, I don't either. But unfortunately, life tends to be better when you do sleep, even though it's inconvenient. It makes the waking hours you have more better. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to fix the boots later. Alright, boots and hands, but let's at least get a head on this for tonight, and then we'll wrap here. I've already got, like, rough outlines of one. Let's play off of this for now. Yeah, it's a right shame, too, because sleep is annoying. I'd love to not have to do it. Whoops. It's quite inconvenient to the whole doing things. I'm gonna go with for like slightly like fewer bigger hair shapes. I think for this one. No, that's not their original style, but I think it'll be an interesting and a decent look for this character. A stray one here, and then we can kind of like curves more like that. And let's see. I'll stick with these bigger hair pieces for now. The catch being I need to make sure I'm getting the hair backing so it doesn't look like this is all just like in front. I've never played either of them, so I can't really say. Mortal Kombat's got a really catchy theme song, though. So I can at least give it points for that. Yo, Scopic, you got thoughts? You played either of those? Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter? How is it? Fair enough then. Alright, that's a vote for Mortal Kombat then. I trust Scopic's taste. Let's see. Oh, dang, 4-player? That would be really complicated. I guess Smash Bros. It works, though. So fighting games can do that, and it'll be viable. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. Whoa, that's not the right brush at all. Let's see. Sheesh. Oh man. One of these days I need to actually probably learn fighting games. Like I'll like play some with friends once and then I'll be like, "Oh, that was fun." And then I'll forget everything by the next time I play. I'm just like, "Ah, rats." Galactic, I do love in Smash that you never know which characters are going to end up being like the meta ones. Like it's definitely not the ones that look the most dangerous. Only for Xbox. Console exclusive Kratos. Well, I mean, you know, it makes sense with all her background in Rip and Tear. Isabelle from Animal Crossing, yeah. Oh, you got it from Rip and Tear, didn't you? Oh, I gotta fix the face. Dagnabbit. Was hoping it would work well. Chin too long compared to narrowed width. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, DDD can just tank through whatever you throw at him. Easier to hit, but I think that also gives him better reach on attacks, doesn't it? Like, he doesn't have to close as much distance on you before smacking you with the hammer. At least that's my guess. I honest to goodness don't know. Okay. Obviously, we still got some stuff that needs work. I want to tweak the boot laces a little bit. Obviously, the hands need to be the same style. I need to pick one. And once again, the face shape. Why is it always the face shape that gets me? Like, I can get a face that's recognizable, but the shape is so hard. Why it like that? Also trying to figure out why this particular part, like the face, looks better in silhouette. And I think part of it's the width of the line on the actual like outline, but like the interior looks better on silhouette too. Maybe it's just that these lines are too dark compared to everything around them. Once we finally do get the face shape sorted out. Be easier. They added a cyborg to that game. Oh my. Would you say that that game is biased more towards the killer or the victims, or is it pretty balanced? Okay, cool. That's one of those things that's so hard to get a gauge from just like watching online. Okay, Pomato, which one would you say? Who's it biased towards? Different for every killer is probably fair, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, when the players and the killer are having fun, then it's going to be totally different. But yeah, okay, so Pomato, you think it's probably biased more towards the killer? Interesting. That was sort of my impression from videos, but again, it's kind of hard to judge from online. Because again, sometimes players throw or different things. I know that was too much. Alright, then one important part of Silhouette, just that we don't forget it next time, let's at least get the outline on the right layer here. Wait, when you say the survivors have infinite loops, who's that in favor of? Are they just like trapped forever, or do they have stuff where they can just cycle and the killer can't do anything? Interesting. Huh. Who'd have thought? I mean, to be fair, if they're doing that, they also, can't actually progress in the game at all, so that's an issue. For the survivors, I mean, but still, yeah. I can see how that would be exceedingly frustrating as a killer. It's funny, my line weight with the pen gets so much lighter the longer I go. Like, I get, like, the feel in better, but it means that my line weight ends up getting really wonky. Let's clean that up. Yeah, but you're also like a stinking streamer hunter, ain't you? You take down Dead by Daylight streamers all the time. Yeah, Pomato, I feel like that's what I would do too, which is why I would not be a very helpful, That's why I haven't played, is I don't think that my teammates would appreciate it. Got so many lines to erase now. Oh no. I love vector lines. It makes this stuff so much easier to clean up. Oops. Yeah. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. I'd be too scared to actually play the game, so I don't want to mess it up for people who actually have strategies and like plans. Unless their plan is to lose, in which case I am on top of things. I'm similarly useless in Phasmophobia. Once the ghost is hunting, like, I basically just am afraid to even enter the house ever. I still do sometimes, but like... You know, then I die, and then I just have to communicate with the team by throwing cups at them. Because it's the only thing I'm still capable of doing. Oh, that's fair, yeah. Okay, hold on. Let's see this without the silhouette. Tail works. Happy with the tail. Well, the face, I think, will come together with shading and lighting a little bit. Maybe adjusting the line weight a little bit, but we'll see. However, it's in a pretty close place. I'm not too unhappy with where it's at. Proportions and angle and pose and all that seem to be good, so it's really just a matter of tweaking the hands and the boot laces. And the boots in general honestly need a little cleanup. Well, it's good to know that someone who's immature built the nuclear bomb, then. Or perhaps, Pomato, that just means that you're actually as mature as a scientist. Either way, I'm worried. But let's see. Don't know why this seam looks so off. I'm sure it'll be obvious when I look at it again at some point, but right now my brain just can't do it. Don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, when my brain gets that way, usually it's a sign that I need to stop and take a break for the night. So, well, it's been an absolute blast having y'all, and thank you again, Galactic, for raiding. It was great to see you. I'm probably going to have to wrap here for tonight. Next time, actually what I can do is I can at least do, like, the base color fill, or base value fills. I don't know why I do this, but it's kind of, I like having, like, the final silhouette to wrap up on for the night, Whoops, that was too much, though. Oh, actually, no, there's sleeve there, so that's all in the clear. Yeah, and I appreciate having you here. It's always good to see you. And I'm so excited to be back at streaming again, finally. I know it's only been like a week that I missed, but it does feel like longer. Like, I was setting stuff up today, and I was like, do I remember how to stream? Like, can I words? Can I art? Ah, rats. A little too gung-ho with this bit. Okay. Oops, that was background. Not up in a minute. Yeah, words is very important when stream. Mato, I'm glad you weren't too nervous. We try to make this a comfy place, not high stress. That's why my stream says both chill and chatty, because I may not stop talking, but I still like try to be nice about it. I knew I hit the background with that. Too good to be true. Oh, I'll get a brush and clean up these last little bits, and then that's where we'll wrap for the night. Oh, have I got a scary laugh? You don't want my scary laugh. It's my real scary laugh is like a witch's cackle. You don't want that. It's good for Dungeons and Dragons. For the record, as a dungeon master, I have completely ruined my laugh because I've practiced so many villainous laughs to like for characters and stuff that like it just straight up replaced my old ones. And so now I just laugh like an evil villain and it's the worst. Not that laugh, but like full on laughing is maniacal sounding. Let's see. Yeah, playing bold seems to work well for you. Okay, is that most of the silhouette at this point? Oh, we gotta get that. Just a little bit. Yeah, you're not afraid to dodge around the pallets. You'll just stinking plow through those things. Okay, and then we can... that's the wrong title for that, but whatever. We'll just call it fill. Eventually we'll make it our value layer. We'll get some of the shading and stuff going next time, once we clean up the line work, of course, and we'll have to clean this up a little bit. But that really is where I'm going to wrap it. Wow, we went an hour over, but it was worth it, because this has been a fun character to draw. And it's been fun chatting with y'all and having y'all in chat. So, I'll do my proper outro, which is I don't have a proper outro. I'm terrible at outros. Go check out the ArtFight and stuff, and like all the socials or whatever. But otherwise, I hope y'all have a good time. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, 3 a.m., whenever it may be for you. And I hope I'll see y'all on the flip side.